This is Echoes of the Silk Road, where legends, dreams, and eerie bedtime tales unfold. Close your eyes, listen closely, and let the echoes guide you. There are certain names you don't say in front of a mirror, not because they're cursed, but because the mirror just might answer. Bloody Mary is one of the most infamous urban legends in the Western world. Her name has been spoken in hushed sleepovers, middle school bathrooms, and candlelit dares for decades. But what's more frightening than the name is the ritual itself. The legend goes like this. You stand in front of a mirror, usually in a dark room, sometimes with only a single candle lit. You say her name aloud, Bloody Mary, 3 times, sometimes 13, depending on who you ask. You stare into the reflection, and then she comes. What happens next varies. Some say her face appears in the mirror, pale, hollow-eyed, bloodied. Others say she reaches through the glass. She may scratch your eyes out. She may scream, or she may just stand there, smiling. But who is she? That's where the story fractures into dozens of tangled roots. Some believe Bloody Mary was Queen Mary the First of England, remembered as Bloody Mary for the execution she ordered during her reign in the 16th century. Others think she was Mary Worth, a woman accused of witchcraft in the 1800s, tortured and burned by her village, her spirit now seeking revenge. Then there's Mary Wells, a more modern tale of a girl who died violently and now lingers in mirrors, feeding on the energy of those who summon her. But the most unnerving thing about the Bloody Mary ritual is that no one seems to know when it started. It wasn't a commercial tale, it wasn't from TV, it simply appeared. A shared memory passed through children and teenagers across cultures and countries, decades apart. Always the same dare, the same mirror, the same fear. Some psychologists call it a group hallucination, a mix of low light, heightened nerves, and expectations twisting your perception. But others believe mirrors are doorways. That's when you say her name. You're calling to something that was always watching, waiting for an invitation. You don't have to believe the story. You just have to try it. 3 times. Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary, Bloody. It began in the fall of 1977. Grayfield was the kind of town that barely made it onto a map. 2 diners, 1 post office, a gas station with pumps so old they still had spinning numbers. Time passed slower there. Days were long, nights were longer, and every October felt like it belonged to another century. That year, a new student moved into town, Eliza Harrow. She was 17, moved from Detroit with her father after her mother passed away. They lived in an old Victorian rental at the edge of town, just beyond the Sycamore Grove. Locals whispered it was haunted. It had been empty for almost a decade. But Mr. Harrow, quiet and practical, said ghosts weren't real, just creaky wood and old pipes. Eliza didn't believe in ghosts either, at least, not yet. She was different from the other girls at Grayfield High. She wore corduroy overalls, always had a sketch pad tucked under her arm, and spoke softly, as though measuring every word before letting it out. People liked her, but they didn't know her. She kept to herself, except for two people, June Keller, her lab partner, and Michael, the shy boy who worked part-time at the local library and always shelved books in silence. By mid-October, Eliza had settled in. She knew the routines, the names, the stories, but there was one story that lingered louder than the rest. One story whispered behind lockers and told at sleepovers. The one about the mirror on the third floor. The ritual. You light a candle or match in the dark, stand before a mirror, say her name 3 times, Bloody Mary, and wait. They say she appears behind you, that her eyes are black and hollow, that her mouth moves but no sound comes out, that if you scream, it's already too late. June said it was an old tale, meant to scare kids. Michael, when pressed, just muttered, "Some doors shouldn't be opened." But Eliza, she was intrigued, not because she believed it, because she didn't. "I don't know why it scares people," she told June one afternoon. "It's just a mirror." June shrugged. "That's the thing about mirrors. They show more than just your reflection." The school itself had a history. Grayfield High was built in 1926. The third floor hadn't been used since the fire in the 1950s. One of the classrooms had been gutted, but the bathroom at the end of the hall survived, barely touched. Its lights flickered, the faucet leaked, the mirror hadn't been replaced in years. Some said a girl once tried the Bloody Mary ritual up there and was found days later in her bedroom, mirror shattered, hands bloodied, but no one could remember her name or what year it happened, or if it was even true. Urban legends are funny that way. They never come with a paper trail. On Halloween night, there was a party at the local church hall. Costumes, cheap punch, a cardboard skeleton hanging by a thread. Eliza wore black, not a costume, just black. She stood in the corner, arms crossed, watching everyone laugh, dance, and pretend. By 10 o'clock, she was walking home, boots crunching over dead leaves, breath fogging in the cold. But halfway there, something made her stop. Maybe it was the moonlight, pale and sharp. Maybe it was the dare she didn't say aloud. She turned around, walked back, past the library, past the grocery store, toward the school gates. Grayfield High stood silent in the dark. The janitor had locked up hours ago, but Eliza knew a way in. Through the back stairwell, the door that didn't latch properly. She slipped inside. The hallways smelled like old paper and ammonia. Her footsteps echoed softly as she climbed the stairs. Second floor, then third. The third floor was colder. The air was still. The fluorescent lights hummed above her, some flickering, others dead. And there it was, the old bathroom door. She pushed it open. Inside, silence. One stall door hung crooked, a spider web stretched across the sink pipes. And the mirror was strange. It looked warped, not broken, just old. like the glass had grown tired of reflecting and wanted to melt into something else. Eliza lit a match. The tiny flame cast long shadows behind her. She stared at her face, half lit, half hidden, and thought she looked like someone else entirely. Then, just as the flame began to curl down, she whispered, "Bloody Mary." Her voice sounded distant. "Bloody Mary." The flame bent like someone had exhaled behind her. "Bloody Mary." Silence. She waited and waited, and then something moved. Not in the room, in the mirror. It wasn't her reflection. It couldn't be. The girl in the mirror tilted her head the wrong way. Eliza moved her hand. The reflection stayed still. Then it smiled, slowly, like it was waking up from a long sleep. Eliza stumbled back, dropping the match. Darkness swallowed the room. There was a sound, a whisper, barely audible, or maybe a breath, then a scratch from behind the mirror. Eliza didn't scream. She didn't tell anyone. Not her father, not June, not Michael. But something followed her home. That night, she dreamed of water, thick, black water, still as glass. In the dream, she was underwater, staring up at herself through a mirror that floated on the surface. Her reflection didn't blink, didn't breathe, it only smiled. She woke with a gasp, the copper locket around her neck burning cold. Her mirror was covered. She had done that instinctively, hours before going to bed. Using an old blanket and duct tape, she didn't remember doing it. The next day, the lights in the school hallway flickered when she walked by. The library clock stopped ticking as she entered. And when she turned to speak to Michael, she saw something move. In the window's reflection, not the room itself. A figure, still, pale, watching. June noticed the change in her. "Eliza," she said one day, "you're not you anymore." Eliza forced a smile. "I'm fine." But the air around her said otherwise. Her drawings had changed too. Where there had once been portraits of forest trees, misty fields, and rainy streets, there were now pages filled with eyes, dozens of them, all staring, some crying black tears. 3 days after Halloween, the mirror on the third floor cracked. No one had been near it. The bathroom was still locked, but the janitor, Mr. Talbot, found spiderwebbed from the inside, as if something within had pushed outward. That same night, Eliza heard the faucet running in the bathroom downstairs. She crept out of bed, heart racing. The house was silent. Her father was working late. The air felt too still, like it had stopped moving. She opened the bathroom door. Nothing, except the mirror. It had fogged up as if someone had breathed across it, and in the center, 5 words had been drawn by an invisible hand. "You called, and I answered." She tried to run. The next morning, She packed a bag and went to the library. She asked Michael for any books, any articles on mirror folklore, Bloody Mary, anything. He stared at her. "You tried it, didn't you?" Eliza didn't answer. Michael sighed and led her into the restricted stacks. There, in a locked case, was a battered old volume, unlabeled, wrapped in twine. Inside were handwritten notes, drawings of a veiled woman with black pits for eyes, descriptions of rituals, mirrors as gateways, names you weren't supposed to speak aloud, and one passage written in faded red ink. To summon her is to tear a hole. She is not bound by time or glass. She is memory. She is echo. She is every girl who was never seen until she made herself known. Beneath the passage was a list of names, all female. The last one, Eliza Harrow. Eliza froze. "How?" she whispered. Michael shook his head. "That book hasn't been opened in years." That night, Eliza locked every door, covered every mirror, lit every candle. She sat in her bathroom, knees pulled to her chest, the old copper locket warm against her skin. But it wasn't enough. At 3:11 a.m., she heard it. The creak of a door downstairs, the sound of footsteps. Not quite barefoot, not quite real. And then, the mirror in her room began to hum. Not loud, not even audible. It was more like a vibration in the bones, like the sound of your own heartbeat when it's not yours. She didn't move. She couldn't. The blanket over the mirror slowly began to rise, pulled by invisible hands, inch by inch. And behind the glass, a face not hers, pale, hollow-eyed, watching and smiling. "I am what you made me." When Eliza's father came home the next morning, the house was cold, too cold. Every mirror in the house had cracked, some shattered. Her bedroom was empty. The only thing left behind was the copper locket, sitting in the middle of the bed. Inside it, there was no photo, only a tiny shard of glass. And when he looked into it, for just a moment, he saw her, not as she was, but as something else. They say Bloody Mary isn't just a legend. She's a collection of every forgotten girl, every silenced name, every whispered scream that echoed only in glass. And once you call her, she never really leaves. Not your house, not your dreams, not your reflection. Because now, you're a part of her story too. Not every legend fades with time. Some grow stronger in silence, waiting to be remembered. Maybe Bloody Mary was never just one woman. Maybe she's a mirror, one that shows us what we fear, what we've buried, and who we've forgotten. The question is, when you stare long enough, will she show you what you expect, or something else entirely? Tonight, before you sleep, take a moment, glance at the mirror, not for too long. And whatever you do, don't say her name. The echoes of the past still whisper in the dark, but for now, our journey ends here. If you've enjoyed this tale from the shadows, Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss what waits beyond the veil. Until next time, tread carefully and listen closely. The road is never truly silent.